Hello, Sober Army. How are you? My name is Craig Beck. I am known as the Stop Drinking Expert and the author of several books helping people to quit drinking, including Alcohol Lied to Me, and a new one that is coming out. Look out for it, called The Sobriety Secret. If you would like a free copy of my book, go to the website, stopdrinkingexpert.com, and sign up for today's coaching session. Spend an hour with me. Let me explain how the process works, and I'll give you the book at the end. So today, I am going to try and scare the bejesus out of you by telling you a real story that I heard in hospital. And if this story is not enough to make you never want to drink again, then you're further down the rabbit hole than I dare to even imagine, because this is the stuff of pure, concentrated nightmare. And I didn't even know this was possible until I went into hospital. And thank the Lord, thank God this didn't happen to me, but it happened to a guy who shared the ward with me. So in previous videos, I've told you about my my little dice with death, my emergency surgery that kind of went a little bit wrong, ended up with a very severe infection and gangrene in my abdomen. And honestly, two of the worst weeks of my life, really, really horrible. Didn't think I was going to make it. But, I could go into great detail about, everything that happened to me, and I could have a pity party, and I could create a very dramatic story about what I went through, but there'd be no point, because no matter what I came up with, no matter how illustrious my language was, no matter how descriptive my story was, it would still pale into insignificance to what happened to the guy in the next bed to me. And I've talked about him previously. He's called Tony. Tony's a self-made man, very wealthy man. And he got there through hard work and just passion and commitment. When he was a young man, he bought a cheap bit of land and he planted olives and he planted grapevines. And he would sell those olives to local restaurants and local suppliers. And he would make a strong liqueur out of the grapes. And every time he had a good year, he would take the money he'd saved and he'd buy another bit of cheap land. And he kept doing this until he ended up with the biggest olive farm and vineyard in Cyprus. Now, the weather conditions are not good for wine, but they are good for this very, very strong, like moonshine, that they call Zivonia. Very, very strong. Tastes absolutely revolting. And he spent the last 40 years selling this stuff and also drinking quite a lot of it as well. And he's a lovely guy. He's a really affable guy, big in character, big in personality, and big in body. He's this big rotund guy. He's just a real character. But his body is shot. He's got prostate cancer, he's got liver failure, he's got cirrhosis, he's got kidney failure. And the doctors would talk to him and treat him as though there is some kind of remote possibility that this is going to end well. His family would come and visit him, and they would all ask for the latest on the treatment. And it was like everyone ignored the big elephant sitting in the room, that he was going to die. Nobody ever talked about it. Like, almost like if you don't mention it, it won't happen. Well, one night in the ward, I was in a very bad place because it was the peak of my infection. I was in a lot of pain. I was very uncomfortable. I had a fever. So I was just lying in my bed, kind of grumbling and moaning. And Tony was in his bed. He was in a very bad place as well. And he was very worried because he had surgery scheduled for the next day. So 8 a.m. the next morning, the porters come with the surgical gurney. They shuffle him onto the gurney and they take him down to the theater. I wave him goodbye and I wish him good luck. And he doesn't come back for hours and hours. He was supposed to be back, lunchtime. No sign of him. Gets to be early evening and I start to think something went badly wrong and Tony didn't make it. And then About 11 o'clock at night, the doors to the ward slam open as the gurney is pushed in, and here is Tony, but he looks dead. He's unconscious. His face is gray. His eyes are closed. He looks terrible. And they push him into his bay. And I sit there for about an hour. I'm lying in my bed for about an hour looking to see if no movement, no sound, nothing coming. And I'm too scared to say anything because I don't want to disturb him. I don't want to bring back his pain by bringing him back to reality. So I sit there thinking, oh my God, is he okay? And after about an hour, just before midnight, I hear this very, very quiet voice go, Craig. I said, yes. No reply. A few minutes pass. And then he says to me, something went wrong. Something very bad happened. And he proceeded to tell me what happened to him in surgery. So they took him down to the theater. They hooked him up to all the machines, and the anesthesiologist started to inject the propofol, the general anesthetic, that white liquid. And his eyes close and he goes out. Then they inject him with a paralyzing agent, a paralytic, which is standard procedure. It just means that your whole body is paralyzed. You can't open your eyes. You can't move a muscle. Nothing works anymore. You're completely paralyzed, including your lungs. So they shove a big breathing tube down your throat and the machines breathe for you. So you're unconscious and you're paralyzed. Then they do the operation. Okay. So that's what normally happens. Except here's the thing. Tony wasn't unconscious. Tony was fully awake, except paralyzed. So he's lying there in the operating theater. He can hear the surgeons talking. He can hear the metal clank of instruments. He can feel them cutting into his body. He tries to scream. He can't. He tries to move an arm, move a leg, blink. Nothing. He's completely paralyzed, trapped inside his own body, having to lie there while they cut into him and remove his prostate. He said it lasted maybe 60 seconds. So I'm guessing, and I don't know, maybe someone with more experience will be able to tell me. I'm guessing after about 60 seconds, they noticed some sort of distress on the monitors and they gave him more of the drug. That's what I'm guessing. Because the monitoring is delayed. You know, it's not instantaneous. By the time they've realized something's happening, it's happened, right? I mean, isn't that the stuff of your worst nightmares? To be paralyzed on the operating table while they're cutting into your body? So obviously, when he came back to the ward and he told me this, I had 3 questions that I asked myself. The first one was, is this really possible? Can that happen? 2, how? Why? Why would that happen? 3, how on earth, how the hell do I make sure that that never happens to me? So I asked Dr. Google, who immediately told me I was about to die, because that's what he always does, because he's a bastard. But then it did explain a few things. It did say, yes, it can happen. It's a rare thing to happen. It's a rare complication of surgery, but it can happen. And there are pretty much 2 reasons why it would happen. One is medication interaction. So if you're on a certain type of medication that is known to interfere with general anesthetic, then okay, that makes sense. That could happen, but they can account for that. The other reason why it could happen is heavy drinking or drug use. So let's be clear about this. This just adds a fresh layer of hell to the nightmare that is alcohol addiction. This is new level for me because I didn't know this was possible. And if someone had told me a long time ago when I was a young man that this was possible, maybe it would have been enough to scare me off this stuff. Because the thought of being paralyzed while someone slices into my body is just I mean, I think I've got PTSD from just hearing about it. So why does this happen? How does it happen? And the answer is pretty much this. It's twofold. It's down to GABA and it's down to glutamate, okay? And also there's a bit of action of your liver here, right? If you're a heavy drinker, if you're a problem drinker and you have been for a long time, like decades, then your body has adjusted to having vast quantities of this dopamine inducing poison in your system. It's had to adapt. Otherwise, you would just die. All right. So lots of things have changed in your body. Okay. Your body still recognizes alcohol as a poison and it wants to get rid of it as soon as possible. So this is what tolerance is, right? The reason why you can drink a whole bottle of wine and you look perfectly sober is a bad thing. It means your body has adjusted enough that it can shift vast quantities of poison faster than a racehorse can. All right. So in the same way that, when you were 18 years old and someone gave you a shot of vodka, you felt a bit tipsy and a bit silly. Now, as an adult who's been drinking for 20 years, you have a shot of vodka, it makes no difference at all. Absolutely zero difference. You get no buzz from it at all. And that applies now to anesthetic as well, because they work in a similar way. So the amount of anesthetic given to a teetotaler that would knock them out like just completely out of it, it's not the same for you. You need more because you've programmed your brain to be resistant, to be tolerant of this sort of lights out chemical. And then there's another problem here because your body has become super efficient at getting rid of poison. It's got to get it out your system. So it's learned over the years how to do that really, really quickly. So when you now go and get an anesthetic, your body goes, okay, let's get this out of here, get it out. Come on, let's get shoveling, get bucking this stuff out. And it's getting rid of the propofol before it's had its chance to do its job. You're processing it too quickly. So it has less impact and you metabolize it much quicker than a non-drinker. And this is why you run the risk of what they call anesthetic awareness. And anesthetic awareness is something you never, ever, ever want to experience. Okay? So that's the bad news. The good news is, by the way, before we get to the good news, there will be people now listening and watching to the Happy Sober podcast, and that will not have been enough to scare them to stop drinking. They'll go, yeah, that's horrible, but okay, but I'm not going to give up my tipple, and you will be in a position of denial around now, and you'll be somewhere between denial and bargaining, and you'll be trying to calculate how you game the system. Now, be honest with me. If you're thinking maybe I could change my drinking so that doesn't happen, or maybe I can take breaks so it doesn't happen, then that's just a sign that you're in denial. All right, because there's no way to game this system. If you switch from spirits to wine, that makes no difference at all. This is not about the type, vintage, quality of alcohol you're drinking. It is purely cumulative. It is the amount you are drinking, okay? So forget about shifting out your strong spirits for beer or something. It doesn't work. Taking 2 weeks breaks will not prevent this happening, okay? And the other thing to mention here is you can't predict when you're going to need emergency surgery. If you're thinking, well, if I ever needed surgery, I'd know in advance, and then I'd stop drinking and allow enough time to pass, and then I'd have the surgery, no problem. But I've just been through an emergency surgery where I got about 4 hours notice. So you can't predict when this is going to happen to you. So the good news is, if you get 3 months clear of alcohol, things start to return to normal in the sense of how an anesthetic is going to work on you. It's not perfect. You're still running some risks, but things are starting to get better. 6 months is much better. Yeah. Perfect. But the message is pretty clear. If you're like me, and what Tony described to me is your idea of hell, the only way to be absolutely 100% certain that you're avoiding that is to stop drinking. And if you have any doubt, if you've been wavering about this issue, if you've been putting it off, if you've been trying to moderate, please let this be your wake up call, because I would not wish what happened to Tony on my worst enemy. It's horrific. I encourage you to take the next step, to go to the website, to sign up to the webinar, to spend an hour with me, and I'll talk you through the process. Okay. Also, watch out for my new book. It's called The Sobriety Secret. It will be on Audible very, very soon. Thanks a lot. See you soon.